Hey, Guoba here. Sorry, Yukong here, with a pre-release discussion of Yukong. She arrives in 2 days with the Watcher banner, and we will also be getting a free one in 1.2. Everyone discussing her so far has missed something big that I like to share with you today. It might be wrong, it might be right, we'll see. Speed tuning, skill spam. A lot of people have been going about her the wrong way, in my opinion. So we're going to be going through everything about her. We can't talk about multipliers or Eidolons yet. That will be in the main guide that will come in a few days' time. We will go through why you might want her, how to use her pros and cons, as well as some possible synergies and team comps. Remember, this is pre-release, so don't take mechanic explanations as 100% facts, just like the Watch video, where his heals and talent might work differently than on release. The pre-release infographic will be in the pinned comment and description. Anyway, let's go. First of all, if you're pulling from meta, she's a harmony, so she will always find a use. She's also imaginary. However, you don't need to pull her right away, since we get a free copy in 1.2. My release guide will discuss if her Eidolons are worth it, but I can't talk about that right now. She is a strong hypercarry buffer, but also has the benefit of buffing 2 DPS possibly, just like Asta and just like Bronya during her ultimate, as well as Silver Wolf and Pella since they debuff enemies. She also fills a sub DPS role and will explain why. So she's an excellent unit to pick up. You have 3 different benefits already just from having her. So she's a 4-star imaginary harmony unit. Harmony units are dedicated buffers. She'll be our first imaginary 4-star, excellent for those stuck in Memory of Chaos without M&M. Her basic attack is standard, it will just deal damage, however her talent will enhance it, and we'll discuss that after. This basic will do 30 toughness damage as a baseline. Her skill is a buffing skill. She will obtain 2 stacks of her buff called Roaring Bowstrings. It is a max of 2 stacks. When it's active, the attack of all allies increases, and since it's just 2 stacks, it will likely be a large attack buff. When an ally turn ends, Yukong loses 1 stack, and this means any ally that can cheat turns like Zila should be able to abuse this like crazy. Yukong won't take away a bowstring stack on the turn she uses her skill. Since it depends on ally turns taking down, you can use multiple DPS ultimates during this buff and they'll all get the DPS increase. Her ultimate is a buff and single target nuke. Every ultimate that does single target damage has a very high multiplier, so we can assume that this does too. Furthermore, if her buff Roaring Bowstrings is active, she will also increase crit damage and crit rate of allies. We can assume that this will be a pretty decent increase, going from Bronya's potential 50% crit damage buffs at a well-built Bronya. We can expect the crit rate buff to be much lower than the crit damage though, from how substat and main stat distribution works. We can also assume the buff will be before she strikes, so if she has her bowstrings up, her ult can benefit from this large crit boost. Wait till live of course to confirm this. Since it's a harmony ultimate, we can expect at least 120 energy cost since everyone else is at 120 or 130. For the rotations, I'll sheet rotations on 120, 130 and 140 energy to avoid discussing leaked values. We'll see on release what it ends up being. Since it's a single target ultimate, it will do 90 toughness damage, which is immense. Next, her talent will enhance her basic attack. It will deal additional damage and increase the toughness damage of the current attack. Our first toughness damage increase, I believe. This will have a so-called set cooldown, and we can assume it's every other turn like similar buffs. So you could do basic with this talent, skill, and basic with this talent again, hopefully. It's not confirmed in the HoYoLab post. We can also assume it will double the toughness damage, as having 1.5 times the toughness damage and doing 45 toughness damage is literally useless outside of like 2 characters, which are Sampo and Asta, that can do 15 toughness damage. So we get a basic that probably does 60 toughness damage, and an ultimate that will definitely do 90 toughness damage. Seeing a pattern here? Her technique turns her into Yelan for 20 seconds. She will zoom in the overworld, which is great for those that really hate waiting those extra 5 seconds of walk time. When she goes into battle however, she will instantly gain 2 stacks of Roaring Bowstrings, nice for setting up your DPS instantly and saving a skill point. Her first essential passive will let her resist 1 debuff application for 1 time. That could be freeze, imprisonment, or a damage over time effect, for example, which is very strong to have, especially for a support that doesn't want to get out of sync. This can be triggered after a certain number of turns. Now in HoYoLab this says certain instead of set turns, unlike the talent, so it will be a longer amount of turns, probably 2 or 3. Her next will increase the imaginary damage dealt by all allies when she is on the field. Asta does the same, and it's nice for mono teams, but does not restrict her at all to mono imaginary, it's just a nice bonus buff. Asta buffs it by 18%, so Yukong might buff it by 18% as well. Great buff from mono imaginary. Her final one will regenerate extra energy for her whenever an ally takes action with roaring bowstrings being active. So this will be impossible to assume the energy again. The way Hoyoverse makes characters, just like Tingyun's 6th Ascension passive, is that the energy will be needed for a better rotation or optimal rotation, or for removing an energy robe, a light cone, or Von Quack. So this will be a nice trace passive. So her kit sounds great. Let's go through her pros and cons. For pros, we have dual DPS buffs. Any DPS will love her, and any sub DPS with her will also love her. Remember, this buff also works for her. Next, she is imaginary and a 4-star, so we finally gain access to the imaginary element without getting lucky. Next, we have high toughness damage. Imaginary break is immense for enemy action value manipulation. She has an enhanced basic and a 90 toughness damage ultimate, so an estimated 210 toughness damage in 4 turns. There will be lots of breaks to come. She has the first crit rate buff among Harmony units, and trust me, my server has some interesting crit ratios, so this will be nice to have. Theoretical CC immunity. The problem with supports is that if they get CC'd, you'd lose a lot of DPS increase or survivability. Running fast. Running fast is fun and it is cool. As well as that, she has sub DPS potential on a potentially high ult multiplier. And then finally, she has 2 attacks in her kit, so that she can abuse the best light cone in the game, or its break effect counterpart. Now on to her cons. Due to her 2 stacks, she may indeed require speed tuning to be above your DPS in speed, unlike Bronya that goes after your DPS, so that they can get that turn of buffs. After this though, I will talk about why this is completely or nearly completely false in my opinion. Low base stats is another con. We don't know her stats, but Harmony units always have low base stats and a taunt of 100. We all know the Tingyun memes, so she might need to build some tank main stats or get some in subs. Next, since in my opinion she functions like Asta, she may have some needed eidolons to enhance her buffing and energy output. Tingyun and Bronya also have eidolons that enhance their buffing and energy, so it will probably be the case for her. Next, her energy generation is likely needed for her rotations, and I've done the calculations, she will need some energy in some form. So you need to get her to Ascension 6 to unlock that. Finally, her technique looks super fun to use, and that's a con because you now have to learn where all the technique point canisters are on the maps. So there are her pros and cons, and if you have any other thoughts that aren't league related, let me know below. As for her best relics, supports usually use the Musketeer set. I wouldn't use the Wind set, it will desync you in some cases, and why farm for Wind set when you can just use Musketeer? Also, Wind set only really gives you more turns if you're ulting every 2 turns, which she's not doing. The only Harmony to do that is E4, Von Quack, Energy Rope, Skill Spam, Asta. So yeah. For playing ornaments, the usual fleet is going to be great on her. For main stats, a full support build can be tank main stats, Energy Rope, and speed boots if you're speed tuning. I prefer tank boots, and I'll show why after. Tank stats mean she can survive, and she doesn't scale any of her buffs based on her stats, just like Asta, so she doesn't need to stack anything. Now in my opinion, she will also be a great hybrid sub DPS. You can get a combo of 2-piece Thief, the Imaginary set, or Musketeer for this. And Musketeer and Thief can also work at 4-piece, Imaginary if you're running her with Well. I prefer Musketeer over Thief, as Thief just gets you extra delay. For plain ornament, you can go Inert, Sal Soto, or Space Ceiling, the usual DPS ones. I prefer Inert because the ultimate will likely be doing a lot of damage. For main stats, you go Crit, Attack percent Imaginary, and Attack percent All Break Effect. For Light Cone's memories of the past she can abuse for the energy, as we'll see, and 56% Break Effect equals an extra 16.8% delay on breaking an enemy's weakness. The damage is negligible though, since Imaginary has the weakest break damage. Since this will give her energy, you can go with Break Effect Rope and stack Break Effect, just like Asta does. Kogger's is memories without the break effect, and it's easily S5. She can also abuse this because of her 2 attacks for the energy. Pasta and Future is also an option, but requires speed tuning unless you follow my advice coming just after. And this, along with all other options aside from cogs and memories, will need her to build an energy rope. So for sub DPS, I recommend just going the first 2, so you can go attack or break rope. So finally, the moment you've all been waiting for, unless you skipped ahead, and in that case, Guoba will be looking for you. I've seen in every community so far that I browse that Yukong is a skill point hoarder. She takes them away like candy from babies and eats the skill points up in front of them. I've also seen that she needs 150 speed and Von Quack and needs to be perfectly speed tuned to the DPS and every DPS, and sometimes even tried to speed tune her taking a turn after the full DPS. Anyway, that's enough. She doesn't take skill points away, we will be playing her skill point neutral just like Bronya. Unless you have 2 Bronya cones, Bronya E1 and some SP positive mates, Bronya will be skill point neutral so your DPS can shine, as a DPS without skill points is a DPS without DPS. Yukong is literally made to be skill point neutral, whether that's her enhanced basics, her double attacks for cogs, the lack of rotation if you skill spam, the perfect energy when considering her ascension passive, or her theoretical high energy cost to abuse cogs. Hoyoverse knows what they're doing when they build these characters. If you look carefully, every character has an intended energy breakpoint. Now let's look at 3 different energy assumptions: 120, 130 and 140 energy. She only needs energy rope or cogs or memories to hit the 120 energy in a skill point neutral setup. Perfect. For 130 she will need cogs or rope and her ascension passive will need to be unlocked, or she needs to tank a hit. At 140 you need cogs and an energy rope. In all of these, if you skill spam, you take 4 turns anyway unless you go cogs and energy rope. Remember, just because a skill gives big buffs doesn't mean it's worth to use it every turn. Using Bronya to boost your Dan hang up and give him a large damage percent boost isn't good if he has 0 skill points and will be doing a basic attack. So we go skill point neutral. Now for speed tuning. Everyone is talking about giving her tons of speed and going before your DPS, giving us the follow rotation. Now has it ever occurred to you that you can just make her go last? I mean, everyone uses speed boots anyway. So she could just remove these speed boots. The 2 DPS still get the benefit, and they'll be the fastest in the team anyway, because you'd be speed tuning her to be in front of them either way. I mean, Zila's skill brings her to 143 speed, Yanqing buffs his own speed, Dan Heng buffs his own speed. Are you going to account for that? And what if you want that attack percent boost for any off-turn things like ultimates or Luwatcher healing? Will you account for that? If Yukong gets CC'd as well, she won't be taking first turn. Or you could just go no speed boots on Yukong. Furthermore, no speed will buff any ultimates that come in during the enemy turns or any attacks from counters such as Clara. And you can say that Clara will be slower, and she will. But Clara taking 1 bowstring still leaves it up for every counter of hers. She will have 1 bowstring left, and that will cycle back to the next rotation. If you run fast Yukong, you can't run her with Clara. Now the downside of no speed is not getting that first turn of buffs, but do you know how we solve that? We use her technique. It's pretty OP. Now, this slow Yukong thing won't be perfect, and I'm not saying you should absolutely run this, it's just my take. The main problem with this is that if your DPS gets CC'd, you'd lose out on the buffs for this DPS. In fast Yukong, you can just save your skill till the next rotation if you see that your DPS got CC'd. Slow Yukong, you'd have to pray. So you'd lose some skill point efficiency in slow Yukong versus enemies that CC your DPS. So that's my take on everything. Skill point neutral Yukong with no speed boots is my recommended use for her. It's a little weird, but there you go. Even with speed, still go skill point neutral. As for playstyles, if you want to go full support, you can, and it will work great. You can also go sub DPS hybrid, I believe, as she gives herself those big attack percent buffs and crit buffs. The attack percent buff she can't abuse until her ultimate, but this will lead to a giant ultimate worth of damage, so why not abuse it? Also, her basics will be enhanced, so you should be pumping out a lot of decent damage for a Harmony unit. Remember, her base stats will be low though, so it's a risky playstyle. Also, you'd need to run cogs or memories to substitute the lack of energy rope, but her self buff should give her some decent damage. That, again, you might as well abuse, since she doesn't get rid of her own bowstring stacks. Break Effect Rope and Memories S5 gives you an action delay of 66.24% when you break an enemy, and you'll be breaking a lot into imaginary weak enemies. For Synergies, I'll go with the obvious Well and Luwatcher for mono imaginary. Walt needs effect hit rate for his debuff uptime and power in general, so allowing him to take more effect hit rate stats and giving him those crit and attack buffs is juicy. Also, lots of breaks will be happening. The imaginary damage percent bonus trace is also nice. As for Luwatcher, he scales on attack for his damage and his healing, so any attack buffs also work for this healing. Since he doesn't need to be taking turn to heal, this means every attack you do, as long as Yukong has her buffs up, will do even more. And if you run slow Yukong, any emergency skills that happen when your allies get low will be doing more healing. The obvious and only mono imaginary comp we can do right now is, well, Luwatcher, Yukong and Silverwolf, but Yukong is a Harmony and can go in nearly any team. I recommend bringing a solo sustain and running a main DPS with a flex. That could be a hyper carry with a sub DPS, or another buffer, or a debuffer. Anyway, I've cooked enough for today. I hope you enjoyed and learned something. If you did, like and consider subscribing, and the full guide will be out soon. Thanks for watching. Have a Guoba day.